Jewish people, already before the golden calf was created and they served it, they already wanted to. It already entered their minds. The will to serve another God. This week we are reading two Torah portions this Shabbat, Tzaria and Metzorah. Let me give a little bit of a synopsis of what's going to be read, and then we're going to get into a couple details and some fascinating questions that Zera Shimshon actually addresses, which, while he addresses them, they seem to be so obvious, yet many of us have never even, or if any of us at all have ever even thought of these fundamental questions with these absolutely amazing answers. So listen to the synopsis of what goes on in these two Torah portions. The main idea is when an individual has leprosy and they need to go to the Cohen to examine, is this the type of leprosy which makes them impure, and then there are repercussions because of that, or not? The basic way that this would happen is that first, a person would get a warning. Now, the main reason why a person would get leprosy, as we know, is because they would speak lashon hara, they would speak slander, derogatory, whether they would be true or false statements about another individual. So we have to understand, back in the day, God and the Jewish people were closer in the way that whenever there would be a spiritual ramification, it would also come out as a physical one. Meaning nowadays, Lo aleinu v'lo alechem, we all have spoken lashon hara, and we did not have blotches and leprosy on our skin. So we kind of have a disassociation with this whole concept. However, in the time of the Mishkan, in the time of the Bet HaMikdash, the time of the temple, God and the Jewish people were closer in the way that when someone would do something that would be against the will of God, spiritually, physically, there would also be a ramification, such as, in this case, leprosy, blotches on a person's body. But that's not where it started. Listen to how interesting where it started was. It first started by a warning on an individual's house. I know we've all encountered in our lives mold, hopefully nothing recent, but mold is something that happens. There's all different types of colors of mold. There's black mold, there's white mold, there's green mold, there's orange mold, there's pink mold. There's many different types of molds, and there's dangerous ones and even more dangerous ones. That is all something physical. We know that that's caused by water damage. Yet in the time of the temple and the time of the Mishkan, a person would come to their house and they'd see these blotches which looked like leprosy on their house. And this would be the first step, the warning, to tell them, hey, you're speaking something which you shouldn't be speaking. You're speaking about someone else. It's negative. It's derogatory. They would bring the Cohen to come and examine it and take a look. Is this really tzarat? Is this really leprosy? Is it really God sending me a message or not? And if they didn't get that message, then on their clothes, they would get leprosy. And again, they'd have to show their clothes to the Cohen to see if that is really something which is impure or is it okay. Until finally it came on the individual's very own skin and their body. And at that point they had to again go to the Cohen and have the Cohen examine, is this something which is impure or pure? All this primarily because a person was speaking lashon hara, forbidden speech, slander, and derogatory statements about another fellow. The first question Zera Shimshon addresses is, why, by the concept of leprosy, of this leper, does he have to go specifically to a Cohen? Why can't he go to a rabbi or a posek halacha, an individual who knows the halacha and is able to tell you what the rule is, just like every other area in our Jewish life? If we have a question on kashrut, if something can be eaten, cannot be eaten, we don't call the Cohen, we call the rabbi. Are we allowed to do this on Shabbat? Are we not allowed to do this on Shabbat? When's the holiday? What am I allowed to do on the holiday? What am I not allowed to do? And every single aspect of law in our religion, it's always targeted towards the rabbi. Why specifically by leprosy, the Zera Shimshon asks, is the examination and the questions targeted and needed to be approached to a Cohen? The first and only instance that we have to go to a Cohen. So he gives two answers. The first answer he gives is based on the Talmud. The Talmud says that leprosy serves as an atonement. When a person receives leprosy, we know they're receiving it because they spoke prohibited speech. And the pain of the embarrassment, of the discomfort, of just having the leprosy all serves as an atonement for what they have done wrong. In the time of the temple, who was always approached when atonement needed to be done? A Cohen. A Cohen would be the one who was the helper at the temple to help service us with the sacrifices and any other service due in the temple. So the Zera Shimshon says it makes perfect sense that you have to go to the Cohen to help with this atonement process. He answers another answer. To me, this answer is even more fascinating. He quotes the Midrash that says, and asks rather, if we look at the juxtaposition of this part, this portion of the Torah, and the previous one, we need to ask why. Right before this portion of speaking about a leper, it speaks about a woman who gives birth. A woman who gives birth, the Midrash, as well as the Talmud, the Torah tells us, needs to bring a sacrifice, an offering, after she has given birth. Now you may ask why. It's not a thanksgiving offering, it's actually a sin offering. Really? What did a woman do so wrong by getting pregnant and giving birth? Well, Talmud explains that when a woman is in childbirth, she can feel that it is so painful, which it really is, and especially back in the day when there was no epidural, that it's so painful that she takes a vow and she takes an oath. I'm never going to have another child. And then right after the baby comes out and she sees the beautiful baby, she says, I wouldn't mind to have another one next year. Because she took, so to say, an oath in vain, obviously she's regretting it, that she never wants to have another child, the Torah told a woman who gives birth to come and bring a sacrifice. Right after that portion is this portion of the leper, the individual who has leprosy. The Midrash asks, what's the relation? What's the reason for this juxtaposition? And the Midrash answers and says, if a woman that needed to bring this korban leda, this offering after giving birth, this childbirth offering, and she didn't, she was avoiding to come and go to the Cohen, there will be a situation where she will have to be forced to come to the Cohen because of something else that she might have been doing. So the Zera Shimshon, he learns from that and he sees that if a person, and this is not only limited to a woman after childbirth that has to bring an offering, but when an individual is avoiding to come to the Cohen, again, to understand, the Cohen, in the time of the temple, when you would bring a sacrifice, part would be burnt, part would go to them, that was their parnasa, that was their livelihood, and part you would be able to take home and eat. But because you tried to avoid that, offering, that service, that donation, then you'll be forced to come forth to the Cohen against your will to know if you are pure or impure. Now you're asking, well, what's the difference if the individual is pure and impure? When an individual was deemed impure by the Cohen because they had leprosy, they would be dismissed and exiled from the city, from the camp that they were in. And they would be alone. So they had to know, am I able to stay here or not? What if people start running me out of the city? Oh no, I went to the Cohen, I'm okay. Oh no, I'm not okay. So we have to go. So the Zera Shimshon says this is why this is the only area in halakha even that we need to turn to a Cohen. The first reason he gave was because it's coming as an atonement, and Cohen is always involved in aspects of atonement. And the second reason he gives is because if you were trying to avoid the Cohen, well, you can't. Now you're going to be forced to go and see him. There's two lessons, similar lessons, I wanted to bring out from this portion of the Zera Shimshon. The first being that we should always try to be good people, and better yet, even good friends. Sometimes we do or don't invest in relationships because we think to ourselves, well, maybe there's something to get out of this one, or maybe there isn't. Oh, this relationship, there's what I have to gain, so let me give into it, let me invest in it. But with this other individual, there's not much for me to gain, so maybe not. We can never think like that. We always have to try as much as possible to be fair and to be giving and to be loving to all people with all different types of relationships. Because today it's one way, tomorrow it might be another way, and we don't do things for others because we're looking for reciprocation or for something back. But in the event that you will need something from someone and you turn them down last week, last month, last year, or last decade, when you'll need their help, you'll need them to be there for you, and you already dismissed them and turned them away once, they might not be there for you and you might be very needy of it. That's one concept. I think the second lesson I want to take out of this is much greater. Listen to this. In life we have a choice. And sometimes we don't have a choice. Well, Rabbi, we have free will. You do have free will, but there's some times where you don't have a choice. We all have the choice to eat healthy. We all have the choice to work out and to take care of our physical well-being. Many do, many don't, each to their own discretion. There comes a time in life where you don't have a choice anymore. You can't eat whatever you want to eat. You can't do whatever you want to do. You can't act the way you want to act because sometimes the body has been abused and is run down, whether it's at an elderly age or even less. If a person doesn't take care of themselves, they have the choice to, until it's too late. When it comes to spiritual realms, we all have a choice. As men, we have a choice to wake up and come to the synagogue and put on a talit and tefillin and to pray. We have choice to study Torah. We have a choice to give charity. We have a choice to be part of a community, to keep Shabbat, to not work on Shabbat. We have a choice in all aspects of our spiritual well-being. There comes a point, get ready for this, where we don't have a choice. And when is that? Well, I'll give you one example. I'm sure we could think of many others, but I'll give you one example. I have many individuals who come to me and they tell me, Rabbi, I am living in regret. I say, why? And I look at them and they're really sad. And they say, because when my father was alive, he always asked me to come with him to the synagogue. He always told me and invited me to the Shabbat table to partake in the Shabbat Seudot. And rarely did I ever take him up on it. Maybe on the high holidays, maybe once in a while. And the individual now finds that his parent, Lo Alenu, passes away. And they're not able to spend those cherishing moments with them anymore. And they're forced to come to the synagogue for Kaddish. They're forced to the cemetery for the funeral, for the memorial services. They're forced doing things that they don't want to really be doing, and they would rather be doing it with the individual when they were alive. So we as Jews, as human beings, can choose to do the right thing, whether it be physically and all the more so spiritually, voluntarily, or unfortunately, we could get and find ourselves in a position where we'll be forced to do it. You'll be forced not to work on Shabbat because you're going to have to be in the synagogue saying Kaddish. You'll be forced to come on a daily basis for prayer because you're going to have to say Kaddish. You'll be forced to bring all the family all together because that's what a family does when the tragedy happens. Why wait until we're forced to do it? Let's do it voluntarily, and let's do it while we enjoy doing it as a family, as a community, as Jewish people. We learned this from the Cohen. If you tried to avoid him when you could have came, you'll be forced later on to come. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us that we will do what we like to do and will want to do out of our voluntary and our own will, rather than being forced to do it later on.